At the Alder and Ash, a velvet-lit steakhouse in Briarhaven, my stepmother leaned in like she was going to fix my necklace and drove her fist into my ribs under the ceiling camera's red dot. I pressed my watch, felt the haptic click, and whispered, 7:58 p.m. Thank you for the timestamp. My father exhaled through his nose. Don't make a scene, he said. He didn't know the scene had already been captured, from 3 angles, with clear audio, and that Monday morning, the company he built would answer to it. My name is Nora Keaton. I am 32 years old, and tonight, I am playing the part of the victim they've cast me as, or so they think. The Alder and Ash is the kind of restaurant that weaponizes silence. It's a cathedral of dark oak and hushed ambition, where conversations are conducted in murmurs that never quite rise above the discreet, percussive clatter of heavy silver on bone-white porcelain. The air, thick with the scent of seared prime beef, old money, and expensive perfume, is filtered through a ventilation system so quiet you can hear the faint, crystalline sigh of a wine glass being set down on a starched linen tablecloth 3 tables away. Light doesn't illuminate here. It pools, carving figures out of the expensive gloom. Each table is an island, a self-contained diorama of power and performance. Our table, number 24, is no exception. It sits in a slight alcove, offering the illusion of privacy while affording a clear, unobstructed view to the small, dome-shaped security camera, serial number AX73B, manufactured by Viridian Systems, recording at 4K resolution, tucked into the ceiling cornice like a dormant black spider. I am wearing a minimalist black vest over a silk shell. The closest thing I have to armor, it's the final act of a 90-hour workweek at North Pier Holdings, the financial services empire my father, Graham Keaton, built from a single commodities trading desk into a global behemoth. 90 hours of navigating regulatory frameworks, analyzing risk matrices, and drafting compliance protocols. 90 hours of being the ghost in the machine, the meticulous, unseen daughter whose name appears on internal memos but never in press releases. Across from me, my stepmother, Valerie, is a supernova of calculated warmth. Her scent, a heavy, cloying amber, arrives at the table a full second before she does. It's a scent designed to announce, to colonize the air around her. Her smile, a dazzling white feat of cosmetic engineering, is the same one she deploys for the photographers at charity galas and hospital wing dedications. It never reaches her eyes. Tonight, a cascade of diamonds glitters on her wrist, a recent gift from my father, each stone catching the low light and fracturing it into 1,000 tiny, sharp pieces. She looks at me, and her smile tightens by a millimeter, a micro-expression of contempt so familiar it feels like a part of our family's crest. The conversation is a sterile performance for the benefit of the partners from a potential acquisition target seated at the adjacent table. We speak of market trends, of philanthropic endeavors, of the upcoming sailing season in Nantucket. My father leads the discussion with the same effortless authority he uses to command a boardroom. He is a man who mistakes control for affection, who sees his family not as a unit of love, but as a subsidiary brand to be managed. Then, under the pretense of a shared, intimate moment, Valerie leans forward, the diamonds on her wrist flash, a predatory glint in the dim light. Your necklace, darling, she murmurs, her voice a silken thread of faux concern. It's crooked. Her hand comes up, fingers adorned with perfectly manicured nails, as if to adjust the simple silver chain I wear. It's a gesture meant for public consumption, an act of maternal care for the cameras, both security and social. But her eyes, cold and hard as polished river stones, tell a different story. Her body shifts, using the bulk of the oak table to shield the movement from the rest of the room. Her left hand, the one not draped in diamonds, drops below the tablecloth. The blow is not a slap, it's a punch, fast, low, and brutally precise. The knuckles of her closed fist drive into my side, just below the ribcage. It's a practiced, efficient movement, designed to inflict maximum pain with minimum visible evidence. A sharp, electric agony sears through my side, stealing my breath in a silent, violent gasp. For a split second, the entire world narrows to that single, blinding point of impact. The low hum of the restaurant, the scent of amber, the taste of iced water on my tongue, it all vanishes, replaced by a white-hot nova of pain. But through the haze, I see it, the tiny, steady, crimson pinprick of light from camera 3. It's watching, it's recording, just as I knew it would. My survey of the restaurant 2 weeks prior, under the guise of booking a corporate event, had been thorough. I knew the make, model, and field of vision for every camera in this room. My own hand, resting in my lap, moves with a calm that feels utterly alien to the storm erupting in my nervous system. I press the side of my watch. A single, haptic click vibrates against my skin. A secret confirmation. It's a custom-built device, its internal microphone now active and streaming a high-fidelity WAV file to a secure cloud server. Simultaneously, a signal activates 2 other devices. The key fob for my car, sitting innocently on the table next to my bread plate, begins recording 1080p video, its lens aimed perfectly to capture Valerie's face, and the tiny magnetic pin on my lapel, disguised as a minimalist piece of jewelry, its microphone designed to filter out ambient noise, is also live, a trinity of digital witnesses, all synchronized to the same atomic clock. A waiter, a young man with nervous eyes, approaches our table, his water pitcher hovering uncertainly. He saw my flinch, the sharp, involuntary intake of breath. He senses the sudden, glacial drop in temperature at our table. He doesn't know what happened, but he knows something is wrong. My father's jaw tightens. He doesn't look at me, doesn't ask if I'm all right. He looks at the waiter, then at the partners at the next table, his expression one of pure, unadulterated annoyance. The brand is at risk. The performance has been disrupted. "Don't make a scene, Nora," he says, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. It's not a request. It's a command. We are at dinner with partners. The deal is more important than my pain. I draw a slow, ragged breath, the movement sending a fresh bolt of fire through my ribs. I pick up my water glass, my fingers steady despite the tremor deep in my muscles. I raise my gaze from the table and look directly at the key fob. Then, speaking in a clear, level voice, loud enough for the pin microphone to capture every syllable distinctly, I say, 7:58 p.m., table 24. I am not speaking to them. I am dictating a line in an evidence log. Valerie's mask of concern has melted away, replaced by a triumphant smirk. She leans in again, the amber scent washing over me, thick and suffocating. "No one will believe you," she whispers, her voice a venomous hiss meant only for me. It's her mantra, the core principle of her power, her word, the word of the beloved philanthropist wife of Graham Keaton, against the word of his difficult, unsociable daughter. In the court of public opinion, the verdict has always been in her favor. But this isn't about belief anymore. This is about data. I take a long, slow drink of water. The ice-cold liquid traces a path down my throat, a welcome, grounding sensation against the fire in my side. The pain is not a reason to stop. It's the catalyst. It's the final data point I needed. For 3 years, I have endured these moments, these quiet acts of violence disguised by luxury and civility. But I have not been a passive victim. I have been a researcher, collecting evidence with the detached patience of a scientist. Each threat, each bruise, each quiet act of cruelty has been a building block. Tonight was not an assault. It was the final piece of the puzzle, deliberately provoked and perfectly captured. As I set my glass down, my eyes drift towards the bar at the far end of the room. A man in a gray suit, a tourist by the look of his clothes, is holding his phone up, ostensibly taking a panoramic video of the restaurant's opulent decor, but his phone is not panning. It is held steady, its lens aimed directly at our alcove, capturing the entire tableau from a perfect 45-degree angle. He is one of 4 associates I hired for the evening, strategically placed, their presence entirely unremarkable. His recording, which will be time-stamped and uploaded to the same server as my own, will provide the accidental, objective third-party perspective, the final, unassailable nail in the coffin. Valerie thinks she has won. My father thinks he has contained a minor inconvenience. They see me as a problem to be managed. They don't know that for the past year. I have been the architect of the very compliance and ethics protocols they are about to violate. They don't know that the game is already over. All that's left is to play the recording. In the grand foyer of our Briarhaven home, there hangs a portrait. It's not a painting, but a photograph. A 10 by 8 foot monolith of corporate-approved domesticity that once graced the cover of Briarhaven Life magazine. The headline, in a tasteful gold serif font, read, "The Keatons, building an empire, building a family." In the photo, my father, Graham Keaton, stands tall, his hand resting on the shoulder of a much younger me, his expression a carefully calibrated mix of paternal pride and CEO confidence. Beside him, my mother, her smile genuine but weary, holds my hand. We are the perfect triptych, a testament to success, family values, and the American dream as underwritten by North Pier Holdings. That photograph is a lie. It's a well-lit, professionally staged piece of fiction. My mother is dead, and the woman who now occupies her space in our lives, Valerie, understands the power of such fictions better than anyone. The throbbing in my ribs is a dull, rhythmic counterpoint to the memory. It anchors me to the present, to the cold leather of the town car carrying me away from the alder and ash. Each breath is a negotiation with the pain, a sharp reminder of the night's transaction. Valerie didn't just strike me. She reinforced the foundational myth of our family, that appearances are paramount, and any inconvenient truths must be silenced, forcefully if necessary. My mother, Eleanor, faded from our lives, not with a bang, but a long, slow whisper of illness. She was a woman of quiet passions, first-edition novels, watercolor painting, the sprawling, chaotic garden she tended behind our home. She was the antithesis of the North Pier world my father was building. Her death, when I was 16, left a vacuum, a strategic vulnerability in the Keaton brand. My father, a man who abhors a vacuum in markets and in life, filled it with terrifying speed. Valerie arrived 6 months later. She didn't enter our lives. She executed a merger. She was, at the time, a rising star in a top-tier public relations firm, a specialist in crisis management and brand rehabilitation, and our family, in its raw, messy grief, was a brand in crisis. She came armed not with casseroles and comforting words, but with a strategic plan. Her language was that of press releases and stakeholder engagement. She spoke of reframing the narrative, of leveraging philanthropic opportunities, and of maintaining brand continuity. The chaotic, beautiful garden my mother loved was promptly landscaped into a series of brutally minimalist stone terraces and ornamental grasses that required no emotional investment. The house was redecorated in shades of corporate gray and beige. Our grief was scheduled, managed, and ultimately privatized. I was the one asset she couldn't manage. I resisted the rebranding. When it came time for college, I pursued a degree in finance, but I did it on my own terms. I earned a full academic scholarship to a state university, not because we couldn't afford the Ivy League, but because I wanted something that was mine, something untouched by the North Pier checkbook. In their world, this was not a source of pride, but a bizarre and willful act of non-compliance. At family gatherings, Valerie would tell people, with a sad, knowing little smile, "Nora is so wonderfully pragmatic, utterly lacking in grace, of course, but fiercely practical." It was a masterclass in narrative control, painting me as a cold, calculating anomaly, an ungrateful creature who didn't appreciate the gilded cage they had built. My father, for his part, saw it in terms he could understand. Risk and return. Family, to him, was another portfolio to be managed. We were either assets contributing to the overall value of the Keaton name, or we were liabilities. He'd say things like, "Everyone has to pull their weight for the good of the enterprise." Love and support were dividends, paid out only in exchange for loyalty and performance. My refusal to play the part of the polished heiress, my insistence on building my own credentials, marked me as a volatile asset, a potential risk to the brand. And in Graham Keaton's world, risks are to be mitigated, marginalized, or, if necessary, cut loose. Valerie, with my father's tacit approval, solidified my role. I became the difficult daughter, the brilliant but socially awkward recluse who was best kept working behind the scenes. It was a narrative that served them perfectly. It explained my absence from the charity galas and society pages, while still allowing them to hint at my value in a controlled, back-office capacity. It cast me as the problem, and her as the patient, long-suffering stepmother trying to manage me. Our family dinners became the stage for this performance, in public, at restaurants like the Alder and Ash. Every word was a rehearsal, every gesture a carefully blocked scene for the benefit of whichever business associate or social rival was within earshot. But behind the closed doors of the Briarhaven mansion, the script was abandoned. When the audience was gone, the performance ended, and the management style became more direct. The carefully constructed facade of the patient stepmother would crumble, and the mask would come off. The verbal jabs would escalate. The criticisms would turn cruel. And when words weren't enough to enforce compliance, a shove in a hallway, a grip on the arm that left bruises, or a closed fist punch under the cover of a table became the preferred tools of enforcement. My father saw none of it, because he chose not to. Complaining was making a scene. Fighting back was being dramatic. The message was clear. Deal with it quietly, or you will be deemed a liability to the enterprise. For years, I endured it. I absorbed the pain, the humiliation, the sheer, breathtaking injustice of it all. I tried to fight them on their terms, with emotion, with appeals to a sense of familial duty that they simply did not possess. It was a losing battle. I was speaking a language they didn't understand, or rather, one they had deemed irrelevant to their bottom line. So, 3 years ago, I changed my strategy. I stopped speaking their language and started learning my father's. I made a lateral move within North Pier Holdings. I left my lucrative but siloed position in quantitative analysis and took a significant pay cut to transfer to a then obscure department, corporate risk and compliance. It was the single most important decision of my life, in that sterile world of regulations, audit trails, and whistleblower policies. I found my arsenal. I learned that in the universe my father had created, a daughter's pain was a subjective, dismissible claim, but a formal complaint, filed through the correct channels with meticulously documented evidence, was a Category 1 operational risk. An emotional appeal could be ignored, but a data breach, a compliance failure, or a violation of a morals clause could bring the entire billion-dollar enterprise to its knees. I learned that truth, in their world, wasn't what was felt. It was what could be proven. So I began to learn how to prove it. I studied the architecture of proof, the evidentiary value of a timestamp, the legal weight of a digital signature, the unassailable narrative of a security camera log. I learned how to create an unbroken chain of custody for digital files, how to embed metadata that was as damning as a signed confession. I learned to let the truth speak for itself, because the truth, when presented as cold, hard, verifiable data, cannot be dismissed as drama. This is the fundamental schism between Valerie and me. She believes in the power of reputation, in the carefully crafted fiction of the magazine cover. She has built her entire life on the principle that if you control the narrative, you control reality. She thinks her social capital, her network of powerful friends, and the Keaton name make her invincible. I believe in evidence. I believe in the quiet, relentless power of a 4K video file, a 48 kHz audio recording, and a GPS log. I believe in the story told by a physician's report detailing blunt force trauma to the thoracic region, time-stamped 90 minutes after a restaurant receipt. Valerie has spent years curating her public image. I have spent years curating a private archive, a silent, growing mountain of proof. And proof, I have learned, has one great advantage over reputation. It is patient. It can wait. It can lie dormant for years. A sleeping dragon in a fireproof vault, waiting for the precise, perfect moment to be woken, tonight, at the Alder and Ash, under the watchful crimson eye of Camera 3. That moment finally arrived. The dragon is awake. My official title at North Pier Holdings is a recent and deliberately understated one: Acting Head of Ethics and Compliance. The acting part of the title was my own suggestion. It implies a temporary, provisional state, making the role seem less significant, less threatening. It was a piece of corporate camouflage, and like all good camouflage, it allowed me to move through hostile territory unseen, preparing the battlefield while my adversaries were admiring the view. They saw me as a placeholder, a quiet administrator filling a seat until a more senior, more pedigreed executive could be headhunted. They did not know that I had spent the last 18 months lobbying for this exact position, meticulously building the case for an overhauled compliance division. They did not know that my tenure, however acting, was designed to culminate in a single transformative event. That event was scheduled for Monday morning. The centerpiece of my work, the project that had consumed my nights and weekends for the past 6 months, was a complete rewrite of the company's whistleblower and ethics policies. The old policies were a joke, a labyrinth of internal reporting structures designed to bury complaints in HR bureaucracy until the complainant gave up or was managed out of the company. My new system was a fortress, and at 12:01 a.m. this coming Monday, less than 36 hours from now, it would go live. The new whistleblower protocol was my masterwork. All reports would now be funneled through an independent, third-party ethics consultancy based in Chicago. The submission portal was anonymous, encrypted with AES 256, and accessible only via a dedicated Onion address, effectively locking out any attempt to trace a report back to an internal North Pier IP address. It was a digital black box, impenetrable from the inside. Once a report was submitted and verified, it triggered an automated, unalterable cascade of legal and procedural obligations that even my father could not override without violating SEC regulations and the company's own bylaws. But the most elegant, most viciously beautiful part of the new framework was a single paragraph I had embedded deep within the revised Senior Executive Code of Conduct. It was an expansion of the standard morals clause. The old clause was a vague statement about illegal acts. My version was a scalpel. It was a beautiful piece of legal prose, expansive and unambiguous, drafted with the help of outside counsel who specialized in high-stakes corporate litigation. It stipulated that any verifiable act of, and I chose the words with surgical precision, violence, harassment, moral turpitude, or creation of a hostile environment, whether in a professional or private capacity, by a C-suite executive or their legal spouse would be considered a material breach of conduct. Such a breach would trigger an immediate, mandatory investigation by an independent committee of the board and could result in penalties up to and including the voiding of stock options and termination for cause. Graham had signed the final revision last Tuesday. I still have the image seared into my memory. Him, sitting at his vast mahogany desk, scanning the executive summary I had prepared. He didn't read the full 80-page document. Of course, he read my 2-page brief, which highlighted its benefits in terms of investor confidence and brand integrity. He'd looked up at me over his reading glasses, a flicker of something almost like pride in his eyes. "Excellent. Proactive risk management. Nora," he'd said, before pressing his signet ring into the warm wax seal on the final page. He thought he was approving a shield for the company. He had no idea he was signing a warrant. Every piece of evidence I collected tonight was part of a meticulously planned workflow. My watch, my key fob, my lapel pin. They were not just recording. They were streaming, in real time, to a proprietary, encrypted cloud storage vault under an anonymous account I had established using a shell corporation. From there, the data was automatically replicated to 3 separate, geo-redundanced servers. A physical copy of the complete, encrypted data package is downloaded every 12 hours to a solid-state drive, which is then placed in a safety deposit box at a downtown bank, to which I am the sole key holder. The chain of custody is absolute. To ensure the evidence was not just compelling but legally indestructible, I had retained a digital forensics firm 6 weeks ago. They are the best in the business, the kind of people the FBI uses for complex cybercrime cases. Their mandate was simple. Upon my signal, they were to access the feeds from the Alder and Ash's security system, for which my legal team had already obtained a subpoena, to be served Monday morning, compelling them to preserve the footage and synchronize them with the video and audio files from my devices and from my accidental tourist at the bar. They would layer the feeds, timestamp everything to the nanosecond, and produce a single, consolidated, court-admissible file, complete with a sworn affidavit testifying to its authenticity and unadulterated state. Valerie's whispered threat. My father's command. The sharp, sickening sound of the punch. It would all be there, captured from 4 angles, with audio clear enough to hear the ice clinking in my glass. The witnesses were the human layer of the plan. I couldn't rely solely on technology. The 4 people I had asked to be there tonight were not colleagues. They were the few trusted friends I have from university, people who exist entirely outside the North Pier ecosystem. One is a doctor, one is a lawyer, one is an architect, and one is a journalist. They were seated at separate tables, their reservations made under different names. Their instructions were to observe, to act as natural as possible, and to be prepared to provide a statement if and when the time came. They were my analog fail-safe, a chorus of credible, independent voices to back up the cold, hard data. The final tactical move was made 24 hours ago. At 5 p.m. on Friday, I formally submitted a request to my father's chief of staff for a 2-week temporary leave of absence, effective immediately. Citing personal reasons, it was approved within the hour, seen as another example of difficult Nora being unpredictable, but it was a critical strategic maneuver. It created a clean, sharp line of demarcation. When the report is filed through the anonymous portal on Monday morning, it will not come from Nora Keaton, the acting head of compliance, a disgruntled employee with a conflict of interest. It will be filed by an anonymous source, and I, Nora Keaton, the private citizen on a formal leave of absence, will be named as the victim. It's a subtle distinction, but in the world of corporate law, it's a chasm. It protects me from accusations of using my internal position to launch a personal vendetta. It frames me as the subject of the report, not its author. It gives me space to operate. In my briefcase, beside my laptop and a copy of the new compliance framework, is a single, sealed envelope. It contains a formal summons, drafted by me on official board of directors letterhead, calling for an emergency session of the independent members of the board for Monday at 9:00 a.m. The stated purpose? To review an urgent, time-sensitive report from the Independent Ethics Monitoring Service that presents a material risk to the company's contractual obligations and brand integrity. I will have it delivered by courier to the chairman of the board at 7:00 a.m. Valerie sees me and sees a nuisance, a problem of inheritance, a thorn in her side that must occasionally be disciplined. She sees the girl who should be grateful for the scraps thrown from the North Pier table. She thinks I am an employee, a subordinate, a family member to be managed and controlled. She cannot conceive of a world in which I am not a pawn in her game. She has made a fatal, catastrophic miscalculation. She thinks she is a queen, moving on a board of her own design. She has never once stopped to consider that I might be the one who wrote the rules of the game, who designed the board itself, and who has been patiently waiting for her to make the one illegal move from which there is no escape. The trap is set. The evidence is secure. The laws are in effect. All that is left is for the game to begin. The drive away from the Alder and Ash is silent. save for the faint hum of the town car's engine and the sound of my own measured breathing. The pain in my ribs has subsided from a searing flash to a deep, resonant ache, a physical metronome counting down the hours until Monday morning. But the pain is secondary. My focus is on the data. In the world of compliance, a claim without evidence is just noise. A claim supported by an immutable, multi-source, cross-verified data package is a weapon of mass destruction. Mine is now fully armed. The primary audio file, captured by my watch, is a thing of beauty. It's a 48 kHz, 24-bit WAV file, broadcast quality, capturing the full spectrum of the soundscape. You can hear the precise, muffled thud of knuckles hitting fabric and flesh, a sound distinct from the background clatter of silverware. You can hear my sharp, stolen intake of breath, followed by the crystalline clarity of my voice. 7:58 p.m., table 24, and then, the critical payload, Valerie's venomous whisper. No one will believe you. The microphone, designed for dictation in noisy environments, caught her sibilance with perfect fidelity. Paired with it is the video from the key fob on the table. It was recording in 1080p at 60 frames per second, a high frame rate I specifically selected to capture fast motion without blurring. The tungsten lighting of the restaurant, usually a challenge for digital sensors, was no issue. The lens I'd had custom installed has a wide aperture, and the sensor's low light performance is exceptional. It didn't just capture the scene, it captured the micro-expressions. It caught the flash of contempt in Valerie's eyes as she leaned in, the calculated shift of her shoulders, and the smug, triumphant smile that settled on her face just after the impact. But my data is only the first layer. The second layer comes from the house. The digital forensics firm I retained is already on standby. At 8:00 a.m. on Monday, they will serve the Alder and Ashes management with a legal preservation order. Their primary targets are the feeds from two specific cameras. First, ceiling camera 3, the Viridian Dome, its high-angle view, as confirmed by my earlier survey, cleanly captured Valerie's entire arm movement, the aggressive forward motion, and my corresponding flinch. Second, bar camera 1, located at the far end of the room. This feed is the artistic flourish. Its angle captures our table in profile, and more importantly, it captures the scene's reflection in the curved glass of a large wine chiller behind my father. This reflection, though slightly distorted, provides a reverse-angle view, eliminating any possibility of claiming the impact was an accident, a gesture misinterpreted. The combination of 4 video angles, my fob, close-up, low angle, the tourist's phone, mid-shot, objective, the ceiling, high angle, overhead, and the bar, reverse angle, reflection, creates a 360-degree, inescapable truth. The digital evidence establishes the what. The transactional evidence establishes the why it matters to North Pier Holdings. The dinner reservation was not made by me. It was made by Valerie. Using her official Valerie, Keaton at North Pier, corporate email address. The subject line, Dinner Meeting Wester Graham Keaton and Partners. I have a copy of the server-side email log. This wasn't a family dinner. It was a corporate function. She was present as a representative of the company, entertaining business partners at the adjacent table. The itemized receipt for Table 24, which my father paid for with his North Pier corporate Amex, will be time-stamped by the restaurant's POS system at 10:47 p.m. This document anchors her actions directly to her official, public-facing role as a brand ambassador for my father's company. Then, there is the evidence of intent. At 6:15 p.m., as I was leaving my apartment, Valerie sent me a text message. It reads, in its entirety, "No drama tonight, or you'll regret it." I didn't just screenshot it. I used a forensic imaging tool to pull the raw file from my phone, preserving the full, unadulterated metadata. This metadata is a digital fingerprint, showing the originating number, her personal cell, the destination, my cell, the exact time it was sent from the carrier's server, and the exact time it was received. It proves premeditation. The assault at 7:58 p.m. was not a spontaneous loss of temper. It was the promised, capitalized regret. My own movements are logged with the same precision. The black box GPS tracker in my personal vehicle, which I had installed for insurance purposes, logs its location every 30 seconds. Its data will show my car parked at my office until 7:12 p.m., arriving at the Alder and Ashes parking garage at 7:42 p.m., and remaining stationary in that location until 10:21 p.m. When I left, it corroborates my timeline perfectly, locking my presence at the scene of the assault. The most critical step, however, happened after I left the restaurant. Before going home, I drove to a 24-hour urgent care clinic, one that is an in-network partner for North Pier's corporate health insurance plan. I filed a claim. The attending physician, a thorough and blessedly objective woman, documented my complaint. Patient states she was struck in the right side by another individual at approximately 8:00 p.m. She examined the area, noting the immediate onset of tenderness and subcutaneous swelling. By tomorrow morning, the bruising will be spectacular, deep purple and black, a perfect imprint of Valerie's knuckles. The physician's report, electronically signed and time-stamped at 11:34 p.m., is now a permanent part of my medical record. The insurance claim, filed under my North Pier Holdings corporate plan, is another data point, another official document linking the violence back to the company's ecosystem. The human element is not forgotten. I have the name of the waiter who flinched, the young man with the nervous eyes. His name is Alex. I also have the name of the bartender, who I spoke with briefly on my way out, ostensibly to compliment the cocktails, but in reality to fix his name and face in my memory. The couple at table 26, the partners my father was so desperate to impress, are now material witnesses to my father's public command to not make a scene, a clear act of silencing a victim in real time. My own 4 associates, the lawyer, the doctor, the journalist, and the architect, have already uploaded their own written, notarized affidavits of what they observed, all time-stamped before midnight. This entire package of evidence, the multi-angle videos, the high-fidelity audio, the email logs, the text metadata, the GPS data, the medical report, and the witness affidavits, does not just live in one place. Redundancy is the heart of security. As of 11:00 p.m., the complete, consolidated file, which my digital forensics team has already watermarked, hashed, and verified, exists in 4 locations. The primary file is in the secure cloud vault. The first backup is on an air-gapped, encrypted USB drive that will be placed in my bank's safety deposit box at 9:00 a.m. Monday. The second is on a separate, identical drive in my lawyer's office vault. The third, a read-only copy, is already in the possession of the independent, third-party ethics consultancy in Chicago, waiting in their digital queue to be officially opened and assigned a case number at 9:01 a.m. The chain of custody is a work of art. Every file, from the moment of its creation, has been logged. Each time it was copied, moved, or accessed, the action was recorded in a signed digital log. My forensics team has run an SHA-256 hash on every single file. This creates a unique digital signature, a string of characters. If even 1 pixel, 1 byte, 1 single bit of data is altered, that signature will change, proving tampering. The evidence package I have built is not just damning, it is legally and technically pristine. It is admissible. It is indestructible. There is one final piece. It's a small, almost petty detail, but it speaks to the psychology of the abuser. As I was leaving the parking garage, my dashcam, which I had angled toward the valet stand, caught Valerie and my father waiting for their car. The timestamp is 10:49 p.m. The footage shows Valerie, standing under the bright fluorescent lights, idly chatting with the valet. Then, she does it. She reaches over with her left hand and pointedly, almost subconsciously, pulls the sleeve of her right blazer down over her wrist and knuckles. It's a habit I've observed for years, a small, telltale gesture she makes after she's used that hand to strike me. It's her way of physically covering the act, of putting the weapon away. It's not proof in a legal sense, but in a presentation to the board, it will be a devastating, humanizing confirmation of guilt. The package is complete. The heist is over. The vault is full, and the doors are sealed. All that's left is to turn on the lights. Valerie's official position at North Pier Holdings is a masterpiece of corporate ambiguity. Senior Strategic Advisor to the CEO. It's an unpaid role, a detail she emphasizes at galas and in magazine profiles. She frames it as a public service, a selfless donation of her time and vision to the company she loves. This is a brilliant piece of public relations. It affords her all the power, access, and prestige of a C-suite executive, a corporate Amex, a corner office on the 34th floor, a budget for brand representation, and her face on half the company's philanthropic marketing, with none of the legal accountability of an actual employee. She is, in her own mind, untouchable, a queen consort, not a line item. This is the miscalculation upon which my entire plan is built, because while Valerie is not an employee, she is, indisputably, a representative. Her name, image, and advisory role are woven into the very fabric of the North Pier brand, and I have spent the last year ensuring that this representation carries a heavy contractual price. My current project, which I finalized 2 weeks ago, involved the renewal of 3 mission-critical contracts. The first is with a Scandinavian sovereign wealth fund, a $40 billion asset management deal. The second is the final stage of a merger with a data analytics firm in Austin. The third is a new, 9-figure credit facility with a consortium of institutional lenders. These 3 deals are the bedrock of North Pier's 5-year growth strategy. And deep within the compliance annex of all 3, an annex I personally drafted and negotiated, is the expanded morals clause. Section 9B. It explicitly states that the agreement is contingent on the good conduct of North Pier's key executives, officers, and designated public-facing representatives, including legal spouses thereof. Valerie is not just a spouse. She is a designated public-facing representative. She is bound by the clause twice over. My father, in his haste to secure the deals, signed them without reading the fine print I'd so carefully prepared. He assumed, as always, that the morals clause was a shield to protect his company from outsiders, not a sword to be used against his own house. My weekend is a quiet study in methodical escalation. I am on personal leave, a ghost in the system. From the sterile quiet of my apartment, I begin my work. On Sunday evening, at precisely 10:00 p.m., I log into the anonymous, third-party ethics portal, the one I built, the one that is firewalled from North Pier's internal network. I upload the complete evidence package, the video files, the 48 kHz audio, the metadata from Valerie's text message, the time-stamped medical report from the urgent care clinic, the witness affidavits, and the dashcam footage of her covering her knuckles. The report is not emotional. It is a sterile, factual notification of a material risk event. The recipient is not my father. It is Alistair Hayes, the independent chairman of the board and head of the Ethics and Compliance Committee. Alistair is a 70-year-old titan of old money, a man who believes in order, procedure, and, above all, the absolute sanctity of contractual obligations. He loathes messes. He loathes litigation. He especially loathes public scandals that could affect share price. My report is structured not as a plea for help from a victim, but as an urgent warning from a compliance officer about a clear and present danger to the company's most important new contracts. I am not asking him to protect me. I am advising him to protect the company. The moment I hit submit, a secondary protocol activates. The report is now officially in the system, flagged as Level 1, Material Risk. At 7:00 a.m. Monday, when Alistair's office receives the automated notification, another automated script simultaneously triggers a company-wide legal hold. This is the kill switch. Our IT department, run by a man who owes his job to my father, can no longer accidentally wipe a server. The mailboxes for Valerie, Keaton, Graham, Keaton, and several key members of their inner circle are instantly frozen. All deletion privileges are suspended. Any attempt to alter or delete a single email related to keywords like Alder and Ash, contract, or Section 9.b will not only fail, it will be logged in a separate, immutable audit file accessible only by the independent ethics consultancy in Chicago. The digital trap is sprung. The irony is that while this silent digital war machine is booting up, the company's public-facing apparatus is proceeding in blissful ignorance. I check the internal communications schedule for Monday. There, slated for 9 a.m., is a new blog post for the North Pier website, complete with a social media push. The title is Our Culture of Respect: How North Pier Leads with Integrity. It's accompanied by a professionally shot photo of Valerie, smiling warmly, arm in arm with the head of a women's shelter she advises. The post extols the company's zero-tolerance policy for harassment and violence in all forms. It's a beautiful, perfect piece of corporate propaganda. I do nothing to stop it. I let it remain in the queue. A digital time bomb of hypocrisy set to detonate at the exact same moment as the emergency board meeting. The meeting invitation is my next move. I do not send it. My role is to provide the data. The board must act, but I have ensured they will. The summons for the 9 a.m. emergency meeting, delivered by courier to Alistair Hayes's home, suggests the attendees, the independent directors, of course, the general counsel, and most critically, Mike Sullivan, our COO. Mike is not my father. Mike is a pure operational pragmatist. He runs the company while my father manages the brand. He has long viewed Valerie as an expensive, disruptive vanity project. The invitation, which he will receive from Alistair, is carefully worded. Emergency board consultation regarding immediate and material contractual risk tied to representative conduct. Mike Sullivan won't see a family squabble. He will see $40 billion in assets under management about to walk out the door because of the CEO's wife. He will be my ally, not out of loyalty to me, but out of loyalty to the balance sheet. While the board prepares to handle the corporate crisis, I create a second, parallel crisis. This one is not anonymous. At 8 p.m., Sunday, my personal lawyer sends a formal registered letter to the head of human resources at North Pier. It is a formal complaint of a hostile work environment and physical assault, filed by Nora Keaton, employee. It cites, specifically, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the company's own employee handbook. Policy 4A, Workplace Violence. This is a different bomb entirely. The board is now dealing with a contractual risk. HR is dealing with a massive legal and HR liability. They are now legally obligated to open an investigation and, most importantly, to protect their employee, me, from retaliation by the alleged perpetrator, Valerie, and any executive who might seek to cover it up, my father. The company is now fighting a war on two fronts. The first tremor from the outside world arrives Sunday at 8:30 p.m. The partners from Table 26, the ones my father was performing for, were clearly rattled. They are part of the Austin Data Analytics merger. They had a front-row seat to my father telling me to not make a scene after I was visibly struck. It seems they spent their Sunday talking to their lawyers. A priority email, flagged red, lands in the inbox of North Pier's general counsel. It's from the acquiring firm's legal team. It's polite, but it's a kill shot. It reads, Dear Counsel, prior to finalizing execution of the pending agreement, we require affirmative assurance that North Pier Holdings is in full compliance with all representations and warranties under Section 9.b, Conduct of Representatives. Please confirm in writing that no senior executive or designated representative is currently involved in any situation, public or private, that could be construed as an act of domestic violence or moral turpitude. The countdown clock is ticking. I can picture the scene. The general counsel, seeing that email, spilling his Sunday night scotch. He is calling my father, who is furious. He is calling the head of HR, who is now reporting a formal Title VII complaint from me. The COO is seeing a 9.2 SM meeting that threatens his biggest deals. They are all in separate silos, holding different pieces of the same grenade, and the pin has just been pulled. And then, at 9:15 p.m., the final act of hubris. My phone buzzes with a notification from Instagram. It's Valerie. She has posted a new photo to her public. Verified account. It's a professional shot from last month's hospital gala. Graham looks powerful. She looks adoring. And I am there, standing slightly apart, my expression carefully neutral. The caption is a masterpiece of oblivious self-congratulation. So blessed to have such a wonderful, supportive family, a perfect end to a perfect weekend. Family values. Keaton legacy blessed. I look at the photo, at the lie she is broadcasting to the world, a lie she believes is her armor. I save the image. I forward it to the forensics team. Addendum E, I write. Public statement, 2115 ES. The spark has been tossed. The kindling is dry. All I have to do now is wait for the sunrise. Monday morning arrives not with a storm, but with the quiet, efficient hum of corporate machinery grinding into motion. The city is still draped in the cool, gray light of dawn, but within the digital and legal corridors of North Pier Holdings, a series of precise, pre-programmed events are already unfolding. At exactly 7:30 a.m., an encrypted notification lands in the inbox of Alastair Hayes, the independent chairman of the board. The subject line is sterile. Case file 734B, notification of material risk. The email is from the Chicago-based ethics consultancy. It contains a secure, one-time use link to the evidence package. Alastair, a man who lives by procedure, opens it. He sees the multi-angle video of the assault. He hears the 48 kHz audio of his CEO's wife whispering a threat, and his CEO telling a victim to be quiet. He reads the time-stamped medical report detailing blunt force trauma. For Alastair, this ceases to be a family matter and becomes a 5-alarm corporate fire. His first call is to the company's outside legal counsel, a white-shoe law firm that specializes in corporate governance. By 8:15 a.m., their recommendation is delivered via a formal memorandum. It is swift and unequivocal. To contain liability and demonstrate a good faith response to their contractual partners, they advise the immediate and temporary suspension of all public-facing and representative roles held by Ms. Valerie Keaton, pending a full investigation. The legal firewall is being constructed, brick by methodical brick. While the board is reacting to the contractual risk, the Human Resources Department is reacting to the legal one. At 8:30 a.m., my phone rings. It's the Vice President of HR, a woman named Sharon who has always treated me with a mixture of pity and condescension. Today, her tone is different. It is cautious, formal, and freighted with legal significance. Nora, she begins, reading from a script. I am calling in response to the formal complaint we received from your legal counsel. The company takes these matters with the utmost seriousness. We would like to schedule a meeting to establish an interim safety plan for you. The words are a quiet thunderclap. The system is now legally obligated to treat me as the person to be protected. I am no longer the difficult daughter. I am the employee, the complainant, the victim. Valerie is the subject of the complaint. The roles, in the cold, clear language of HR policy, have been irrevocably reversed. The next domino falls at 8:45 a.m. A courier delivers a letter to my father's office. It is from the office of the chairman of the board. The letter formally notifies Graham that, in light of a pending investigation involving his spouse and a direct report who is also his daughter, the independent directors have unanimously voted to request his full recusal from any and all proceedings, discussions, and decisions related to the matter to avoid a catastrophic conflict of interest. He is being sidelined. The Emperor is being politely, but firmly, locked out of his own war room. He can no longer kill the investigation, because he is no longer a part of it. The consequences for Valerie become tangible at precisely 9:00 a.m., the moment the emergency board meeting is scheduled to begin. As she attempts to swipe her access card at the VIP elevator bank to go to her 34th floor office, the light flashes red. Access denied. She tries again, red. A security guard, looking uncomfortable, approaches her. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. There seems to be an issue with your credentials." Her keycard, the symbol of her status and power, has been remotely deactivated. She is barred from her office, from the executive lounge, and most critically, from the in-house media studio where she films her philanthropic content. She has been physically severed from the corporate body. Simultaneously, the head of corporate communications receives a frantic call from the general counsel's office. The Culture of Respect blog post, scheduled to go live in moments, is to be killed immediately. The technician in charge of the website yanks it from the queue just seconds before it publishes. In its place, at 9:15 a.m., a new, terse statement appears on the North Pier newsfeed. It is a masterpiece of legal ambiguity. North Pier Holdings has been made aware of an internal matter and has initiated a comprehensive investigation in accordance with our corporate governance policies. We are committed to a thorough and impartial review. The story they had planned to tell the world is dead. A new, far more dangerous one is beginning. The shockwaves hit the outside world with stunning speed. At 9:30 a.m., formal notifications arrive from all three strategic partners. The Scandinavian Sovereign Wealth Fund declares a 72-hour pause on all negotiations pending clarification of a potential governance issue. The Austin data analytics firm officially invokes the morals clause, stating that the merger is contingent upon a satisfactory resolution that poses no risk to brand reputation or shareholder value. The lending consortium puts the 9-figure credit facility on indefinite hold. The theoretical risk I outlined in my report has metastasized into a full-blown, 9-figure financial crisis in the space of a single business hour. From the quiet of my apartment, I make my final strategic move. I forward a single, password-protected document to Alistair Hayes's private email. The subject line is Risk Mitigation Pathways. It is not an emotional plea. It is a simple, brutal flowchart. Path A is labeled Containment Suppression. It branches into a series of outcomes: breach of contract, SEC, reporting violation, for failing to disclose a material risk, shareholder lawsuit, and termination of all three pending deals. Path B is labeled Transparent Investigation and Action. Its outcomes are different: potential short-term negative press, preservation of key contracts, and demonstration of robust corporate governance. I am not asking them to punish Valerie. I am showing them, in the cold, hard language of finance, that protecting her will cost them billions. Protecting the company requires sacrificing her. Alistair understands the math. At 10:00 a.m., a new directive is issued from the board to the head of internal audit. The investigation is being expanded. The auditors are instructed to conduct a full forensic review of all expenses filed by Valerie Keaton over the past 36 months, with a specific focus on discretionary spending, charitable donations, and art acquisition funds. The board is no longer just investigating an assault. They are looking for financial impropriety, a cleaner, less messy justification for severing ties completely. This is the point at which Valerie's composure finally shatters. Her world, so carefully constructed, is dissolving around her, stripped of her access, her status, and her allies. She does the only thing she has left to do. She tries to reach me. My phone begins to ring at 10:15 a.m. The caller ID reads, Valerie Keaton. I let it go to voicemail. She calls again, and again. The calls come every 3 minutes. She leaves no message. It is a pure, panicked attempt to re-establish control, to use the old tools of intimidation and manipulation. I count the calls. After the 17th missed call, I text my lawyer. Now. At 11:00 a.m., Valerie's personal attorney receives an email from my counsel. It is a formal cease and desist notification. Please be advised, it reads, that any further attempts by your client, Ms. Valerie Keaton, to contact our client, Ms. Nora Keaton, directly will be considered an act of witness intimidation and will be reported to the relevant authorities. All future communication is to be directed exclusively through legal counsel. The final wall has been erected. She can't reach my father, who has been legally recused. She can't reach her allies at the company, who are now terrified of being drawn into an official investigation, and now she cannot reach me. She is alone, adrift in a sea of consequences, completely and utterly isolated. The boardroom on the 34th floor is a glass box suspended over the city. On a clear day, the view is spectacular. A God's eye perspective of the steel and concrete canyons that make up North Pier's empire. This morning, a low gray ceiling of clouds presses down on the skyline, and the room feels less like a throne room and more like a cage. The air is cold, recycled, and carries the faint, sterile scent of industrial carpet cleaner. The only sound is the nearly subsonic hum of the climate control system and the occasional, nervous click of the General Counsel's Mont Blanc pen against a leather-bound notepad. It is 9:02 a.m. I was not invited to the initial gathering. I was instructed to wait in the adjoining anteroom, but I know who is in there. My father, Graham Keaton, sits at the head of the vast, obsidian table. Though he is not running the meeting, Alistair Hayes, the chairman of the board, sits to his right, his posture ramrod straight, his face a mask of grim procedure. The other 4 independent directors are there, their faces looking drawn and serious. And at the far end, facing my father, is Mike Sullivan, the COO, a man whose loyalty is to the P&L statement, not to the Keaton family name. At 9:05 a.m., Alistair's executive assistant opens the door to the anteroom. "Ms. Keaton," she says, her voice carefully neutral. "They're ready for you." I walk in. All eyes turn to me. My father's gaze is a physical force, a mixture of fury and disbelief. I meet it for a fraction of a second before turning my attention to Alistair. I am not here as a daughter confronting her father. I am here as the acting head of ethics and compliance, presenting a report to the chairman of the board. "Mr. Chairman, members of the board," I begin, my voice calm and even. I place a small remote on the table and the screen at the end of the room flickers to life. "You have received the preliminary notification from our third-party ethics monitoring service regarding Case File 734B. I am here to provide the necessary context and outline the potential exposure to the firm." My presentation is not a story. It is a case study. The first slide is a simple timeline. 1815. A text message establishing intent is sent by the subject, Ms. Valerie Keaton. 1942. The parties arrive at the Alder and Ash for a corporate function. 1958. The incident of physical assault occurs. 2247. The bill is paid via a North Pier Holdings corporate account. 2334. A medical report is filed, documenting physical injury. I walk them through it with the detached precision of a surgeon. I do not use the words my father or my stepmother. I refer to them as the CEO and the subject. I refer to myself as the complainant. I lay out the evidence forensically. The server logs of the dinner reservation made with a corporate email, the metadata of the threatening text, the GPS coordinates confirming the timeline. I explain how the subject's status as a designated public-facing representative places her actions squarely within the purview of the company's code of conduct. I am building a case not against a person, but against a liability. My father sits rigid, his knuckles white where he grips the arms of his chair. He is being forced to listen to his own life dissected as a series of compliance failures. Then, the doors to the boardroom slide open with a forceful hiss. Valerie stands there. She is not dressed in her usual power suit. She is wearing a soft cashmere sweater. Her hair is down, and her face is a mask of stricken, tearful indignation. She has come to play her final card. The role of the wronged wife, the misunderstood mother. She ignored the security guards, bypassed the receptionists. She is here to appeal to a higher authority, family. "Graham?" she says, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "What is this? What is she doing? This is a private family matter." Every man in the room stiffens. The This is the one thing they cannot afford this to be. Valerie takes a step into the room, directing her performance to the board members. "I demand a chance to speak," she says, her voice rising, "to defend myself as a member of this family." Alistair Hayes does not raise his voice. He does not even look at her for more than a second. He looks at the head of security, who has just appeared behind her. "This is a meeting of the Board of Directors of North Pier Holdings," he says. His voice is cold and hard as the glass table. "You are not a member of this board. You are not an employee. You are not welcome here. Please escort Ms. Keaton from the floor." Valerie's face collapses. The performance fails. For the first time, she understands that the rules have changed. The theater she has commanded for so long has been closed. The head of security takes her gently by the arm. "Ma'am, please." The doors slide shut behind her, the soft, pneumatic sigh sealing her out for good. A heavy silence descends on the room. I pick up the remote. "If I may continue," I say into the quiet. I do not play the video, not yet. Video can be debated, angles can be questioned. Instead, I press a different button. Audio. The 48 kHz wave file fills the silent room. It is shockingly clear. First, the low murmur of the restaurant. Then, the distinct, ugly, percussive thud. It's a sound that is utterly out of place in this sterile environment. It's followed by my own sharp, pained gasp of air. Then, the clink of my water glass as I set it down, the sound magnified in the silence. And finally, the two voices that seal the verdict. My father's voice, low and irritated. "Don't make a scene, Nora." And my own, clear and steady, 7:58 p.m., table 24. The effect is devastating. The audio is raw, intimate, and undeniable. It is the sound of violence and the sound of a cover-up, all in the space of 5 seconds. My father's face goes ashen. He looks like a man who has just seen his own ghost. It is Mike Sullivan, the COO, who breaks the silence. He doesn't look at me. He stares directly at my father, his eyes blazing with cold fury. "Graham," he says, his voice flat and dangerous. "That morals clause in the new contracts, the one that covers spousal conduct, were you aware of the specifics of the clause you signed last week?" My father doesn't answer. He seems to have shrunk in his chair. I press the button on the remote again. The timeline on the screen is replaced by a new slide. It's a direct quote from the Scandinavian Sovereign Wealth Fund contract. The text is black, except for 3 words, which are highlighted in a brutal, blood red. Section 9, B. Representative conduct ales material breach. The air goes out of the room. The abstract risk has become a concrete, contractual reality. The general counsel clears his throat. "Mr. Chairman," he says, his voice strained. "In light of this, new information, and the direct inquiries we have already received from our partners, it is my legal recommendation that the board must act immediately. We need to suspend all of Ms. Keaton's representative activities, effective immediately. We must inform our partners today that we have taken decisive action to contain this issue." Alistair Hayes nods slowly, his gaze fixed on me. The decision has already been made. He is simply executing the procedure. "Nora," he says, "the position of head of ethics and compliance requires a permanent appointment. I am granting you, effective now, the full mandate of that office. You will have the board's complete support and all necessary resources to see this investigation through and to repair the damage to this firm." He turns his gaze, finally, to my father. "You have built a remarkable company, Graham. We are now going to save it. The power has shifted. The transfer is complete. I am no longer acting." I give a single, slight nod. "Thank you. Mr. Chairman," I say, my voice steady. My eyes meet my father's across the long, polished table. "I will execute my duties according to the official company policies." I pause for a beat, letting the words land. The same policies the CEO himself approved. The meeting dissolves, not with a bang, but with a slow, reluctant scraping of chairs. The independent directors file out, their faces grim, their handshakes with me firm and brief. They are men who appreciate decisive action, especially when it protects their own investments. Mike Sullivan, the COO, gives me a single, sharp nod as he passes, a gesture of battlefield respect from one operator to another. They avoid looking at my father. He has become a liability, a king in checkmate, and no one wants to be associated with the losing side. Finally, the room is empty, save for the two of us. The silence that rushes in is immense, a physical presence. It is the sound of a dynasty cracking. My father remains seated at the head of the table, staring at the blank presentation screen as if the ghosts of the contracts I displayed were still burned onto its surface. He doesn't move. He doesn't speak. I gather my papers, my movements economical and precise, and walk towards the door. I have nothing left to say to him in this room. My report has been made. My mandate has been given. I am halfway across the vast, empty expanse of the 34th floor lobby, a silent sea of gray carpet and brushed steel, when his voice cuts through the quiet. Nora, it is not the voice of a father. It is the voice he uses to summon a subordinate, a voice accustomed to instant, unquestioning obedience. It is a voice that has, for 32 years, expected me to stop, turn, and await instruction. I stop, but I do not turn immediately. I take a slow breath, feeling the deep, persistent ache in my ribs. I let the silence stretch for a moment, a small, final act of defiance, before I pivot on my heel to face him. He has risen from his chair and is standing in the doorway of the boardroom, a silhouette against the gray, clouded sky. His face is a ruin. The confident, commanding architecture of the CEO has collapsed, leaving behind the tired, bewildered face of an old man who has just been informed that the rules of the universe have changed without his consent. "Are you really going to burn all this down?" he asks, his voice low, raw, with a disbelief that borders on pleading. "Everything I've built, everything your mother and I built, for one punch?" He is trying to frame it, to contain it, to shrink it down to a single, regrettable, and ultimately forgivable act. He is trying to make me the agent of destruction, the arsonist holding the match to his empire. I feel a cold, clear certainty settle over me. The knife, as my mandate required, must be the truth. "No," I say, and my voice is as steady and quiet as the hum of the building around us. This was never about one punch. This is about a system you built, a culture you nurtured, that made the punch inevitable, a culture that taught her she could do it because she would be protected, a culture that taught you to say, "Don't make a scene," instead of, "Are you hurt?" The punch wasn't the disease, it was just a symptom. He flinches as if I had struck him. The words, clinical and direct, are more damaging than any emotional outburst could ever be. He takes a step forward, out of the darkness of the boardroom and into the sterile light of the lobby. "She is my wife," he says, the words sounding weak, hollow. "We are a family." "I know," I reply, from my leather portfolio. I slide out a single sheet of paper. I walk the 10 feet that separate us and hold it out to him. It is a copy of the signature page from the Scandinavian Wealth Fund contract. "And this is your signature." He looks down at the paper. He sees the familiar blue ink of his own name, the confident, decisive slash of his pen. He sees the date, last Tuesday, and he sees the paragraph just above it, the one I had made sure was in a clear, 12-point font, the expanded morals clause, the one that bound his wife's conduct to the fate of his company. The document is not an accusation. It is a contract. It is his own word, his own authority, turned back upon him. "This is business," he mutters, his eyes still fixed on the page. He can't look at me. "This is different. Family doesn't do this to family. You don't sue your own father." He is retreating to the oldest, most foundational rule in his playbook. the code of blood and loyalty that he himself has violated 1,000 times in the name of the bottom line. My gaze lifts from his face and fixes on the wall behind him. There, etched into a massive pane of frosted glass, is the North Pier Holdings logo, a stylized N that looks like a mountain peak. I point to it. In this building, family is 14,000 employees, I say, my voice dropping, becoming harder. They come to work here every day believing that this logo means something, that it means they will be safe, that they won't be harassed, or intimidated, or assaulted in a hallway by someone with power. They believe that the rules in the handbook apply to everyone, not just the people below the 34th floor. My job, the job you just saw the board give me, is to protect that family. Their safety is not a lower priority than Valerie's temper, not anymore. I have redefined the terms of engagement. I have taken his appeal to family and turned it into his greatest liability. He is the patriarch, the father of this corporate clan, and he has failed in his most basic duty, to protect his people. I slide the paper back into my portfolio. It is time for the final move. You have been asked to recuse yourself from the investigation, I state, not as a question, but as a fact. I am now formally recommending that you extend that recusal to all operational decisions related to the 3 pending contracts until this matter is resolved. You can do so voluntarily, in a memo to the board, citing your desire to maintain impartiality. It will be seen as a gesture of leadership. I let that hang in the air for a moment before delivering the alternative. If you do not, I continue, then at 1:00 p.m. today, I will be legally required, as head of compliance, to file a formal conflict of interest report with the board and the ethics committee. It will document, in detail, your personal and financial entanglement with the subject of a material risk investigation. It will become a permanent part of the corporate record. The choice is yours, a voluntary memo or a formal filing. He finally looks up from the floor and meets my eyes, and in that moment, the recognition is absolute. He is not looking at his daughter. He is not seeing the difficult, pragmatic girl who refused to wear dresses to galas. He is seeing a stranger, a woman who speaks the language of contracts and consequences, of liability and legal holds, a woman who has built a cage for him out of his own rules. He is seeing, for the very first time, an equal and a formidable adversary. The silence stretches. I can hear the distant, muffled ring of a phone in an office down the hall. I can feel the faint vibration of the elevator moving in its shaft. The entire world seems to be holding its breath, waiting for his surrender. He closes his eyes for a second, a flicker of profound, soul-deep weariness passing over his face. When he opens them, the fight is gone. There is only resignation. "Do your job," he says. The words are barely a whisper, a puff of air. It is not an apology. It is not a blessing. It is a concession, a transfer of power, a white flag, raised over a fallen kingdom. I nod once, a sharp, final gesture of acknowledgement. And then I turn and walk away. I do not look back. I do not slow my pace. I walk towards the elevators, my heels clicking with a steady, relentless rhythm on the marble floor. I keep walking, because I know that if I stop, if I hesitate for even a second, he might try to say something that sounds like an apology, and that is a lie I do not have the time to document. The war is won not on the battlefield, but in the dissemination of information. The hours following the board meeting are a carefully orchestrated blitz, a rapid-fire sequence of communications designed to seize control of the narrative, both inside and outside the company. At precisely 11:00 a.m., a press release hits the news wires. It is a model of corporate crisis communication, drafted by the outside counsel, reviewed by Alistair Hayes, and approved by me. It is 4 sentences long. North Pier Holdings announced today that Ms. Valerie Keaton has been temporarily suspended from all public-facing and advisory roles. This decision is pursuant to an ongoing internal investigation into a matter of personal conduct. The company is cooperating fully with all relevant parties to ensure a thorough and impartial review. North Pier Holdings remains steadfastly committed to its principles of integrity and corporate governance. There is no mention of family, no mention of violence. It is cold, sterile, and devastating. It doesn't accuse Valerie of anything. It simply announces that she has been officially erased from the corporate picture. It turns her into a non-person. 7 minutes later, at 11:07 a.m., an email is deployed to all 14,000 North Pier Holdings employees worldwide. The subject line is direct, reaffirming our commitment to a safe and respectful workplace. I wrote the draft myself. It begins, "Today, the company took decisive action to uphold the core principles of our code of conduct." It goes on to reaffirm, in the strongest possible terms, the company's absolute zero-tolerance policy for violence, harassment, and intimidation of any kind. It does not name names. It does not need to. It ends with a link to the new anonymous ethics portal and the phone number for a 24/7 confidential employee support hotline, a service I had approved the budget for last month. The message is clear. The rules have changed. The Palace Guard is no longer protecting the monarchy. It is protecting the citizens. The first validation of the strategy arrives at 11:30 a.m. It's an email from the legal counsel of the Austin data analytics firm, addressed to our general counsel and carbon copy to Mike Sullivan and me. It is brief. "We have seen your public statement. We commend North Pier's swift and transparent handling of this matter. We consider the conditions of Section 9.b to have been proactively addressed and are prepared to resume negotiations to finalize the merger at your earliest convenience." Mike Sullivan responds within 2 minutes. "Excellent. We look forward to it." The 9-figure crisis has been averted. The system, when correctly applied, has protected the assets. My father's empire has been saved from his own choices. Of course, Valerie does not go quietly. Stripped of her corporate power, she retreats to the last bastion of influence she has left, her public persona. At around 1 p.m., a post appears on her verified Instagram and Twitter accounts. It is a long, rambling cri de coeur, accompanied by a soft focus photo of her and my father from a happier time. She speaks of a vicious and calculated attack by a troubled family member, of misunderstandings being twisted for personal gain, and of her unwavering love for her entire family, despite this heartbreaking betrayal. She attempts to frame herself as the victim of a vindictive, unstable daughter, a classic, desperate gambit to win the court of public opinion. She has no idea that she is walking directly into the final phase of the trap. Her public statement, full of lies and accusations, is now a matter of public record. It is the legal trigger we were waiting for. At 1:45 p.m., the independent ethics consultancy in Chicago, citing their protocol to correct material falsehoods that could compromise an ongoing investigation, releases a single, verified file to a select group of Tier 1 financial journalists. It is the video, the full, unedited, 4-angle composite file from the Alder and Ash. The world can now see it all: the lean-in, the smug smile, the fast, brutal punch. They can hear the sickening thud. They can hear my father's dismissive voice. They can hear Valerie's hissed threat. "No one will believe you." The internet explodes. The narrative shifts on a seismic scale. Within an hour, the conversation is no longer about unfortunate family drama. The trending topics are North Pier, corporate accountability, and Graham Keaton. The comment sections on Valerie's post are a tidal wave of revulsion. Her attempt to play the victim has made her the villain in a global drama. Her carefully curated brand, built over years of charity galas and soft-focus interviews, is immolated in the space of an afternoon. The internal machinery continues to turn. At 3 p.m., the VP of HR sends me a formal proposal. In light of recent events, she recommends a mandatory company-wide training program on workplace violence, hostile environment recognition, and bystander intervention for all 14,000 employees, including the C-suite. The proposed budget is substantial. I look at the document, a direct result of the culture of fear Valerie and my father created. I type a single word in reply. Approved. I sign it not as acting head, but with my full name, Nora Keaton, head of ethics and compliance. The official change in title is a formality, but a necessary one. At 3:30 p.m., I submit a formal request to Alistair Hayes and the board to have the acting designation removed from my title. Retroactive to the start of the business day, Alistair's reply comes back in under 5 minutes. The board concurs. Congratulations. Get to work. The final piece of business is personal. The corporate battle is won, but the civil one remains. At 4:00 p.m., my personal lawyer sends a settlement offer to Valerie's counsel. It is not about the company. It is a simple civil demand for damages related to the assault. It covers my medical bills, legal fees, and a sum for personal distress. But the most important clause is the one that is missing. There is no non-disclosure agreement. There is no confidentiality clause. I am not asking for her silence. I am demanding that she pay for what she did, and I am reserving the right to speak about it, factually and truthfully, for the rest of my life. I am taking away her last weapon, the power to buy my silence. The end comes quietly. At 4:45 p.m., I am standing in my new office, Valerie's old one, already stripped of her personal effects, when I get a text from the head of security. Subject has vacated the premises. I walk to the window that overlooks the main entrance 500 feet below. I can't see her, but I can picture it. Valerie, walking through the grand lobby for the last time, not as the queen, but as a pariah. She would have been handed a box with the few personal items from her desk and a single sheet of paper, a formal notice of her indefinite suspension and a trespass warning. She would have walked towards the massive, silent, revolving doors, the same doors she once swept through like royalty, and then, with a soft, final rotation, the doors would have closed behind her, sealing her out of the world she had worked so hard to conquer. I turn from the window and walk back out into the hushed, empty lobby of the 34th floor. The day is done. The war is over. I stand in the center of the vast, quiet space and listen. I can hear the faint, distant hum of the city, the whisper of the ventilation system, and then another sound, the soft, gentle chime of an arriving elevator, its doors sliding open with a smooth, clean sigh. It is the sound of a lock, finally turning, the sound of a cage, finally opening. The internal media studio at North Pier Holdings is a black box of soundproofed walls and controlled lighting. It's a space designed to create fiction, to polish corporate messages until they gleam with an artificial, reassuring light. It's where Valerie filmed her segments on philanthropy, her face artfully lit to convey compassion she did not possess. Today, it is being used to tell the truth. The crew is a skeleton one, just a single cameraman and a young audio technician who watches me with a kind of nervous awe. They have all seen the press release. They have all heard the rumors. They know a palace coup has taken place, and they are now looking at the new monarch. I am seated not on a soft couch, but on a simple, armless chair, facing the dark, unblinking eye of the main studio camera. I am wearing a simple, dark gray suit, no jewelry except for my watch. The message is not about me. It is about the institution. The 3-minute script on the teleprompter is my own. It is concise, direct, and written in the clear, unambiguous language of a legal contract. Good afternoon, I begin, my voice even and calm, filling the silent studio. I speak of the future, of a renewed commitment to the principles laid out in our code of conduct. I talk about transparency, accountability, and the absolute, non-negotiable right of every employee to a safe and respectful environment. I announce the new mandatory training programs and the establishment of an independent, employee-led ethics oversight committee. Then, for the final 30 seconds, I go off script. I lean forward, just a fraction, breaking the formal plane of the corporate spokesperson. I look directly into the lens, but I'm not speaking to the camera. I am speaking to every employee who has ever been silenced, to every person who has ever been told not to make a scene. For a long time, I say, my voice dropping slightly, becoming more intimate but losing none of its authority. There has been a belief that power is the ability to control the narrative, to speak the loudest. We are instituting a new principle. At North Pier Holdings, the truth does not have to be loud. It does not have to be shouted in a boardroom or whispered in a hallway. It just needs to be recorded, and it needs to be believed. From this day forward, it will be. I hold the camera's gaze for a final, silent beat. Thank you. From the control booth, the technician's voice crackles over the intercom. And, we are clear. The cameraman gives me a thumbs up. The brilliant, hot white lights that had been bathing me in their glare cut out, plunging the studio into a cool, comfortable dimness. The small red light on the camera, the one that signals a recording is in progress, blinks off. It's over. I reach down to the small, professional-grade digital audio recorder I had placed on the small table beside me, its own microphone a backup for my official statement. I press the stop button and then slide the cover over its lens and microphone port. With a soft click, it goes dark. It is the first time in what feels like a lifetime that I am not actively documenting my own existence, and for the first time all day, all week, I exhale. It is a long, slow release of breath I didn't even realize I had been holding. The tension flows out of my shoulders, the tight knot of vigilance in my stomach finally unspooling. The heavy soundproof door to the studio opens with a soft whoosh of air. He is standing there, framed in the doorway. Graham, my father. He doesn't step inside. He remains on the threshold, a visitor in a part of his own empire he rarely sees. He looks smaller than he did in the boardroom, stripped of his audience and his authority. He just looks tired. We look at each other across the dark, empty space. The silence is not the charged, weaponized silence of the boardroom. It is the hollow, echoing silence that follows a great and terrible storm. He clears his throat. "You did the right thing," he says. His voice is quiet, raspy, almost swallowed by the vastness of the room. It is the closest he will ever come to an apology. It is an admission, a concession, a surrender. It is, in his own transactional world, the only validation he knows how to give, and I feel nothing, his approval. The thing I once craved, the thing he wielded like a weapon, is no longer the currency of my world. It is a foreign coin from a fallen country. I do not answer him. There is nothing to say. I simply look at him, holding his gaze, letting him see the quiet, calm finality in my eyes. My phone, resting on the table, buzzes softly, the vibration sharp in the quiet. I glance down. It's a push notification from the firm's encrypted communications platform. It's from Mike Sullivan. Subject: Agreement executed. SVF. Note: Client has waived the standard family representative photo requirement for the press release. They request a new headshot of the head of compliance instead. Congratulations. The Scandinavian Sovereign Wealth Fund. The $40 billion deal, it's done. The brand is secure. But the old image, the perfect, smiling family, is dead. They don't want the lie anymore. They want the truth. They want the person who enforces the rules. I pick up my watch from the table, with my thumb. I slide its function from active recording to silent. The tiny microphone icon on its face disappears. There is no need to record anymore. The case is closed. My father is still standing in the doorway, watching me, as if waiting for a verdict I have no intention of giving. I stand up, pick up my suit jacket from the back of the chair, and slide it on. I do not look at him again. I walk past him, out of the dark studio and into the long, glass-walled corridor that leads back to the executive suites. The late afternoon sun has finally broken through the clouds, and the city is bathed in a sharp, golden light. The towers of glass and steel glitter, and the streets below are rivers of light and motion. My reflection moves with me across the vast panes of glass, a solitary figure against the backdrop of the sprawling metropolis. The entire world, reflected in the glass of the North Pier Tower, looks like a video file that has just finished rendering, a perfect, high-resolution record of the day. I stop for a moment, looking out at the empire my father built, and that I, in my own way, have now saved and claimed. I think of the mountain of evidence, the audio files, the video clips, the entire digital ghost of the past 3 years. I say the last words to myself, a final, quiet command. Play it back, then let it lie. Fade to black. Thank you so much for listening to the story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let's connect. Share your thoughts on the story. Subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to like the video. If you want to help this story reach more people, please consider supporting us by hitting the hype button. Your support means the world.